Progress, CSEP. In case one is not aware of CSEP, we are an independent public policy think tank based in New Delhi with a mandate to conduct policy relevant research and provide evidence-based recommendations to the CSEP. We are an independent public policy think tank based in New Delhi. I think there is some echo. Priyansh?
No, I think it's fine now. You can start. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I am Shamash Das, currently a research fellow at Center for Social and Economic Progress, CSEP. In case one is not aware of CSEP, we are an independent public policy think tank based in New Delhi with a mandate to conduct policy relevant research and provide evidence-based recommendations to the challenges facing India and the world. I'm part of the energy and natural resources vertical, and my current research interests focus on the intersections of mobility, energy, and climate change. To set the context for today's webinar, please let me start by saying that electric mobility in form of electric vehicles has shown major progress in India, particularly in the 2 and 3-wheel vehicle segments. What began in FY 2019 with 0.6% EV sales, excluding electric buses, the share has risen to 7.2% this financial year. The sector is now steadily inching closer to the double-digit mark, as we see. While the country has made major strides in transitioning to battery-driven vehicles, what about the rollout of public charging network? As we know, this infrastructure is considered the lifeline for EVs. According to the data from Ministry of Power, there are about 12,000 operational public charging stations as on 2nd February 2024. Maharashtra and Delhi are the leading states. Assuming there are about 5 charging units at a charging station on average, one can derive that for every 65 electric vehicles on the road, excluding electric buses, single public charging unit is available. This ratio does not look very promising. Moreover, there is a lot of concern regarding the state of these charging units. A recent survey by IEEFA found that nearly 84% of the EV chargers examined in a representative sample in Delhi were not functional. The reasons could be theft of charging equipment like guns, copper wires, cables, and lack of maintenance of the charging equipment, leading to no power supply and non-functional display screens. And then there is the issue of incompatibility between the majority of EVs on road and the types of installed charging connectors. Arranging a private charging option, especially at multi-dwelling units like group housing societies, also has its share of difficulties, as we understand. So one may deduce that India is still waiting to see a proper handshaking between electric vehicles and the charging infrastructure. Then how are the present EV users, particularly the personal electric car owners, navigating their electric journey? Are they just brave enough? Or are the issues highlighted in the reports or through media not serious? Or perhaps some of the prominent charging service providers in the country are able to address the gaps and effectively meet the public charging demand. Today, I have the pleasure and privilege to host and learn from an eminent speaker representing an important but often ignored fraternity in the electric mobility ecosystem in the country, early EV adopters. Please join me to welcome Priyansh Murarka. Priyansh is a well-known EV enthusiast and an aspiring change maker. He has a unique story to share about his experience of crisscrossing India on an electric car covering approximately 60,000 kilometers. He has taken initiative to systematically document the experiences and publishing crucial on-ground data, particularly on charging infrastructure landscape. He has founded EXP with EVs.in, a website for dissemination of useful practical data on EV and charging. He is the co-founder at Active Buildings, an indoor air quality sensing and solutions company. He also volunteers with many NGOs in India. Unfortunately, Priyanka Rai from Static is not able to join us today because of an emergency at her end at this 11th hour. But I'm confident that we have plenty of things to cover in next 1 hour or so. So thank you, Priyank, for coming here to participate in this conversation. I know you are also super busy in churning out some of your latest analytical platforms related to EV. And so thank you for making it to this webinar. So, without further ado, please let me first request Priyans to take us through his EV story, his analysis, and shed light on some key aspects of India's charging infrastructure. Over to you, Priyans.
Thank you so much, Shamasis. And thank you, CSAP, for giving me this opportunity to talk about my experience. Please don't mind the background noise. There are a couple of cats around. So, yeah. Anyway, so without wasting any more time, let's can I share my screen? Just one sec.
Sure, you should have the option.
Yeah. Please let me know if my screen is visible. Okay, great. So I'm going to keep the chat box open in front of me. And what I would ideally prefer is that when I'm talking, we have some kind of engagement going on. Um, and if you have some questions, I would love to take the questions, but keep them ready and we'll tackle all the questions at the end. But if I keep asking something, please respond via chat. That's how I know that there is like whatever I'm saying makes sense or not. Okay, just one sec. Sorry. How do I do full screen view? Full screen. Yeah, it's still visible, right? Okay, great. So let me start. So my name is Priyans. I run a website called expwithevs.in. And as Shamasi said, these are the three things that I do. I co-founded a company called Active Buildings, where I run a bootstrap profitable hardware venture. I make indoor air quality sensors, I make solutions, and I've been doing that for the past 10 years now. Outside of that, um, my EV journey started i- in 2022 when I got my first EV car, and I had to take a road trip immediately within a week of getting the car. So I started documenting everything, and it started in a form of a website, and that has evolved now to a proper data, media, and a research company. So I will be talking a bit about that too. And as Shamasis mentioned, that I do volunteer at nonprofit, like one of the nonprofits is Veditam India Foundation, where I've been volunteering for the past 8 years. And we work around river ecosystems and river conservation. So that's a bit about me. Um, these are the two cars that I have. The one on the left is the MG ZS EV, is the facelift to 2022 version, 50 kilowatt hour battery capacity. And the other car that I have is the Tata Tiago, which is the long range. So the MG ZS is mainly used for my intercity travel, and my parents use the Tiago EV in Bombay. So that's how the division is. I have the ZS EV with me here in Delhi, and the Tiago is with my parents in Bombay. This is a map which shows of the road trips that I've taken so far in India. It's a little over 2 years. It's over 55,000 kilometers. And these are the routes that I've taken. I'm going to pick out some of these routes and we're going to talk about how the driving experience has been. And yeah, I've taken it to the mountains in the Himalayas. I've driven in 45-degree heat when I'm driving from Delhi to Kolkata or Kolkata to Bombay. This was in this year's heat wave. And I've also driven down south where I've taken the car all the way till Bangalore. So I have driven the car in various types of conditions, massive rains, extreme heat and extreme cold. So it will be interesting to understand like uh, how and what happens when you drive an electric car in these temperatures. And again, if I can't cover all of it, everything is mentioned on my website, expwithevs.in. While I do go on road trips, instead of just writing about how I'm planning to get there and typing out the driving experience, I also maintain publicly available Google Sheets. These Google Sheets are available online on my website, and you can see each road trip, like on the left, whatever were the charging stops, how much time I spent there, and how much money I spent there. All of it is mentioned on the left side Google Sheet, and on the right side it is more like costs, how much money have I spent so far. So on an average for like 63,000 kilometer, including fast charging and slow charging, I spent around 1.7, 1.8 rupees a kilometer. So if you compare it to a fuel car or a regular ICE car, that still comes out to be 10 rupees, 11 rupees a kilometer minimum. Um, and if you just look at fast charging, people say that, oh, I don't have a slow charger. I just want to use fast charging. Again, you have an average which comes out to be uh, 21 rupees a unit. And in one unit, I can travel around 7 kilometers. So it's still around 3 rupees a kilometer if I'm just fast charging. And 1 rupee a kilometer if I'm slow charging. Most regular people will travel in the city, like they'll not take road trips across a town. And so for them, really, like the operational cost is like 1 rupee a kilometer, the running cost, when you're slow charging. So I started collecting all this data, and all of this data, I've made it public. So it is beneficial for the EV ecosystem. Um, when I was collecting this data, I also encountered a lot of chargers and charge point operators. So when I read online that, people say that there are XYZ number of charging points in India, what I see is that on the ground, that's not the truth. And if you're familiar with charging or EV driving a fair bit, you will understand that there are more than 90 plus apps that you can use to charge your car. So it's a bit of a broken system. It's still maturing. But so what I like to do is I like to collect the data from these apps, and I've created like public reports to understand the state of EV charging infrastructure in India. I've published these reports in September 2022, Feb 2023, September 2023, Feb 2024, and now again in September. In fact, on Monday or so, I'll be releasing another report. So again, it is accessible on expwithevs.in. Uh, Outside of this, what I also do is that I look at the data from various angles, and I like to write about it. I write for my own website. I also have written one article for the Ken where I looked at not working EV chargers on fuel pumps. There were more than 60% of the network was not working for a very long time. So I wrote an article about it. Um, I am also very active in various community groups where we try and promote critical thinking, as to trying to really understand as to what is happening with the car, why are certain faults that are happening, and how can others learn from it and avoid doing the same mistakes again, right? So today I'm going to talk to you about the two, like I've taken 3 to 4 trips between Mumbai to Delhi. And if I just zoom in here, um, you can see the blue line, you can see the gray, the green and the yellow line, right? So these trips have happened in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So I want people to comment and say that which line belongs to what year. So I'm giving everyone a couple of minutes. Please comment.
If you can repeat your question.
Sure. So I have done Bombay to Delhi trip in 2022, 2023, 2024, right? And there are different routes that I've taken. So you can see the blue route, which is from here to Delhi. You can also see the green and the yellow route that goes to Delhi, right?
Mm,
So I
mm.
want people to comment and understand, like take a guess as to what route I've taken in what year.
Okay. In which you, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm. Should we come back to this question now, or
Yeah,
I can share my guess
yeah,
now?
please, please, please.
So it's from the point of view of the shortest route actually between New Delhi and Mumbai.
Hmm,
Uh, my uh, guess is you have taken the yellow line in 2024, and in the previous year the green line possibly, and in the first trip you have taken the blue line.
hmm. Okay. Any more guesses? Anyone in the chat?
Um, I think we should enable the chat option here.
Oh,
Uh,
not enable.
please type in the Q&A box, and I will be, taking a look at the questions and answers. And it's not just about responding to this particular question. If you have questions in general which you'd like Priyank to respond, or me to respond, I would be happy to, take those questions. So feel free to type your questions, your queries in the Q&A box. I will, periodically visit this box and take up those questions. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll tell the answer.
So I have two
Um,
answers, just
okay.
Priyank. So the first answer, or one of the respondents has mentioned that in 2024, you have tried the East-West Delhi Mumbai Expressway. Okay. And my colleague Priyam, he commented that you have taken the blue route in 2023, 2024,
Hmm.
the DM Industrial Corridor, actually
Delhi Mumbai
Delhi
Expressway.
Mumbai Industrial Corridor. So okay, they are, I think, quite aware of the expressways and highways which are,
Yeah.
under development. Yeah. What is
So
the correct answer?
yeah. So the the blue route happened in 2022. The other route, that is this route,
Mm,
happened in 2022.
mm.
Um, the yellow route was in 2023, and the green route was in 2024. Right?
Okay, so I was close actually.
Yes.
So I chose yellow first, and then
Yeah.
green, and then okay. So close. So I
So
was actually thinking from the from the distance point of view actually, which is the shortest route actually.
correct. So when you're traveling in an electric vehicle, the first thing that you check is not the distance, but the charges en route. So that becomes a basic metric of how you want to travel or where you want to travel when you're planning a road trip. So like it's not a surprise, but like states like Rajasthan, states like Gujarat, states like Maharashtra, the western region states, they have a much better charging infrastructure, much better availability of electricity. So that is why the routes there were more prominent, or the chargers came up first on that route as compared to chargers on the DME or chargers through Madhya Pradesh, right? So these are the factors that play a lot of role in how, sorry, deciding how you're going to travel and where you're going to travel. So let's go to the next slide. So the map on the left is I'm going to zoom in on it a bit. Uh,
This way,
this
yeah.
map, yeah, this map is the one that I took in June 2022. I'm going to talk a bit about it and see if my charging stops or if my comments make sense. Um, so I had gotten the car in late April 2022, and in first week of June, I had to be in Delhi for World Environment Day. So, uh, I mean, I had done one road trip prior to this, and I was very excited that I'm like, okay, I'll do a Bombay Delhi road trip. And me being a single child, my parents were like, we'll also want to accompany you. So we all left from Bombay, and I dropped them off at Udaipur while I continued onward to Delhi, you know. So my parents roamed Udaipur and they came back to Bombay. But um, this is this is June 2022. This means that you have temperatures of above 35, closer to 40 degrees centigrade during the day. And I am not a night driver. I prefer driving during the sunlight. I can
Mm,
start like at 4 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., but
mm,
I would want to end my day by 7, 8 p.m., not beyond that. So that meant that I had to bear the brunt of the heat, and that is what I would like to showcase here too. You know, we left from Bombay. It had been 3 to 4 hours by the time we got to Surat, which is near Navsari, and my parents wanted to take a break for breakfast. So I put the car on charge. Um, Unfortunately, we had to share a charger, so I couldn't charge the car much while we were having our breakfast. But we continued onwards from there to Bharuch. Bharuch is close to 400 odd kilometers from Bombay. And my car, the ZS EV, without AC, it can give me 400 kilometers. And with AC, it gives me around 330, 340 kilometers on the highway. So that is the basic stat in mind. So um, that is what we did. We got to Bharuch. We charged the car for a bit. We had a proper early breakfast. Sorry, a second breakfast, in fact. And we charged the car from 18% to 82%. And it took us like around 72 minutes to do so. Remember, this is June 2022. So this is like more than 2 years ago. From there, we headed to Gandhinagar. Um, we headed to Gandhinagar because that was the only route that was available where I had public charging infrastructure. I would like to contrast this a bit with the December trip that I did. December trip, you can see that from Bombay, I went directly to Bharuch, then Vadodara, and then from there, I directly went to Udaipur. Whereas here in June 2022, that was not possible. You did not have chargers on this route. Um, you may not always need them, but it is better to always have a charger on a route rather than going through a charging desert. This is what I've learned, and this is how I always plan my trips so that there is always enough backup. We reached Gandhinagar at 2:30 a.m. 2:30 p.m. in the day, and I still remember it was close to 42 degrees, massive heat wave. And my parents I dropped my parents off at a restaurant. I went to the charger, which was like 3-4 kilometers away. The city was dead silent. There's no one on the road because it's just too hot, middle of June, like early June. And I found a charger. I put the car on charge, and then I hitched a cab from the charging point to the restaurant, had my lunch, and then again went back to pick up the car, got my parents, and then we continued onwards. So these are some of the challenges that happen when chargers don't have amenities like food nearby, or places where someone can rest, or someone can take an overnight rest even. So that is why charging stations at hotels, charging stations at malls are critical. That way, customers can save a lot of time. So I did Udaipur. I stayed there overnight, as you can see here. And before going to bed, again, I had to charge my car because there were no slow chargers back then in Udaipur. So that's how I did this leg of the trip. And from there on, it was straightforward to go to Udaipur, from Udaipur to Ajmer to Behror to Delhi, right? And sorry, yeah. So that was June 2022. Coming to December. Sorry. Okay, these are some of the photos from my June trip. This was the charger in Bharuch. where it was not by any, it was not available on any app. You had a phone number, you contact that person would come, start charging, and you pay that person via UPI. That is how charging would happen back in the day.
Okay.
And this is the second photo that you see is at a static charger in Behror. This was just before reaching Delhi, and you can see the harsh sun that is, on that is on the car. Again, when I reached Delhi, I was staying at my friend's place in an RWA. There was no slow charging there. So what I had to do was, my friend was on the first floor. So I had a 50-meter cable that I threw from the top that would connect my car and charge my car. So this is how you have to, like, for the lack of slow chargers, like this is how you have to deal with everything. That you carry your own cable, you can connect it on any 15 ampere socket, and you can get juice. This is
Mm.
something that you can't do with an ICE car or any other type of car except EVs, where juice is available everywhere. Yeah, you can charge your car anywhere you want. It is just that you need to have the right, um, cable. That's it, or the right length of cable. So that was in 40 degrees centigrade. Here on the right side is another chart, another map rather, where I am driving in close to 10 degrees or 20 degrees. Like it is colder in the north and less cold in the western part of the country. Here, if you see, I had no charging stops between um, Mumbai to Vadodara except Bharuch, where Vadodara was my first day's halt, and the second day halt was at Jaipur. So on the first day, I just had one charging session, which was very close to Vadodara. I fully charged my car and I went to Vadodara. I went to a friend's place. In the building, we could figure out a 15 ampere socket. So I just put my car there overnight so that I could leave with 100% in the morning. And with 100% at Vadodara, I could make it all the way to Udaipur with just 2% range remaining. So in June 2022, I was not that confident of how low really I can go with my car. But as I got more and more experience, I have taken my car to 2%, 1% when I'm on road trips, because you understand that, okay, how much distance have you covered, and you also become better at route planning. You know when are the elevations going to come, or when are you going to go down a decline, right? So
Right.
these are some of the points that were interesting.
If
You must,
if I
yeah,
may pause you, just
sure,
a follow-up question. I mean,
sure,
it's great to see it's kind of a similar trip you made from Mumbai to Delhi, but in two different seasons actually.
yeah,
In the same
yeah,
year. It's not like,
yeah,
after 2 years you're making the trip actually. And one is definitely you are more confident about the performance of your MG ZS right?
yeah.
So you know how much it will give you. And I think the other aspect which played in favor in your second trip, which you made in December, is the ambient temperature.
Correct.
Because I guess your requirement for air conditioning in your car
Hmm.
was much less. I mean, if you compare the June temperature and the December temperature, definitely I think you get a pleasant weather in December. And I just calculated what you said, that your MGZS EV, according I think to their tested driving range, it gives around 450 kilometers. You mentioned around.
On road in a city, my car without AC, it will give me
Hmm.
around 400 kilometers.
Okay.
And
What
with
is
AC,
tested
330,
thing? What is the certified driving range?
460 something, 460,
If
460.
I assume 450, I just assume 450 kilometers as
Yeah,
certified range. And you mentioned that when your AC is on, it gave you around 330 kilometers,
yeah,
right? So
yes.
it is about 25, 27% reduction compared to your certified driving range, actually. And I think this is an important insight or information to, to an EV user, how to plan your travel. Because you may plan your travel based on your certified driving range, which you get when you buy your electric vehicle, but you may, get some bad surprise actually, right? So I think accounting this difference, this real world impact, is important to make a successful
Yeah.
trip.
So the car OEMs are forced to um, get, I mean, not forced, but they have to get their cars tested, and there are certain standards. There are certain conditions under which these cars are tested, and it is that range is then publicized. One, it is a higher number. Two, it makes everyone feel good about the car's range. Second is that credit where it is due. Recently, Tata Motors launched their Curve EV, and they came up with a number 75 something. I forget the actual term, but they say that 75% of their users are going to get a certain amount of range on these battery packs. So they did that for their older cars that are there in the market, and they have also given an estimated 75% range for their Curve EV. So, that is a good metric for customers to understand based on the data that is there with the car OEM, that, okay, the test says something else, but this is what is happening on the real world, you
Mm.
know.
And I see in some of the recent advertisements that they mention possible on-road range one may get
Yeah,
actually.
C75. Yeah, Yogesh has texted on the group. C75. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So,
So,
so, hmm. So I
yeah.
think it's an important aspect to take into account. And I think gradually automakers are also realizing that instead of just giving certified driving range values to the customers, it's also important to give a sense of what one may expect on road actually.
Yes.
Yes.
So, as I mentioned, right, June, I just had the car with me for barely 2 months, and I
Mm.
took it on a Delhi road trip. By December, I was a lot more confident. I had done like multiple Bombay Goa trips, and Bombay Pune and Bombay Indore, Bhopal, whatever. So I was a lot more confident when I was traveling in December. And did this December trip as an experiment, where I was like, I have charged a lot at Tata Power, I've charged a lot at Static, I've charged a lot at the big CPOs, and I wanted to see what the small CPOs are doing, or how is it different from anything. And I'll quickly share my learnings from that. Just one
Sure.
sec. Yeah. Oh, these are some photos that we took. Um, while driving. So the first photo on the top left is when we were entering Maharashtra from Delhi, while on the return journey, and the monsoon had just started in June. So you could see the clouds welcoming us, and it is a beautiful drive to understand, like, how the landscape of the country changes from you're driving through harsh heat, and then you are all of a sudden, like, it just seems so sudden that you transition into rains, like, you have rains all around you. The photo on the right is of a lake called Rajasamand. This is near Udaipur, and it is a 16th 17th century lake. It was one of the first man-made interventions in Rajasthan to store water for the tough times, and it is still functional. So while you're driving through the country, you get to also visit these places which you barely read about it anymore. Here down, me and my friend, we are at Kumbhalgarh Fort in Udaipur. So yeah.
No, you don't have to drop the cable from that Kumalgal Fort window for charging.
No, unfortunately, no. Uh, yeah, so I discovered Mobilane. Mobilane was running an offer back then, and I could charge my car fully for free. And this was one of the first high power, like not high power, but 60 kilowatt charger that I was experiencing for my car on this trip.
Hmm.
Um, Most of the chargers that you see here on on this side, they were all
Hmm.
25, 30 kilowatt. And my car is a
CCS2? CCS2?
CCS2, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And my car can take up to 50 kilowatt hours. So as time progresses, the charging infrastructure also improves, and that is how you can, like, I mean, that's how you get faster chargers. And yeah, that also faster chargers has one drawback. Like, the middle photo is again in Udaipur. This is Pichola Lake, where I put my car on charge, and it was a 25 kilowatt charger. So I put the car on charge there. I went 3-4 kilometers away. I went to Pichola Lake, and there is this nice pizza eatery. You sit there, you eat pizza, you watch the sunset, you see your car charging, and then by the time it is like your car is fully charged, you're ready to head back. So you get these
I think
breaks.
it seems idea to the Domino's of the world that they should open pizza places at the
Yeah,
charging stations, and it's actually true. And it was actually part of my question, like should charging stations only have chargers, or they should have other amenities? Because if users would be spending,
yeah,
considerable time, hours actually at that
yeah,
location. So why not you provide these extra amenities and you can earn extra revenue actually out of that?
exactly. No, and also, like, when today still EVs are slightly costly than regular cars.
Mm.
So when an EV customer comes to a charging point, they're bound to spend 30, 45, 1 hour, 30, 45 minutes or 1 hour to charge their car. And if and everyone needs a break, everyone needs a good restroom,
Mm.
uh, a place with a couple of eateries. And if also excellent if you have like a room or two, like if you have a small hotel, they become perfect charging points, because you can put the car on charge, you can go to sleep, especially if it's a slow charger, and when you wake up, your car is fully charged and ready to go.
The
So
motor kind of system, which one may find in the US,
hmm,
but not that common in our country till now.
you will see some more data about that very soon.
Okay.
So uh,
So
while
Priyas, I have just one question regarding your use of 60 kilowatt chargers. And,
hmm,
often, I mean, there is a general feeling or impression that higher the power of the charger, faster you can charge your EV. But we know that there is something called C rate of the battery of the EV, which limits the ability of the battery to absorb power at a high power level, which I call the appetite of the battery actually.
yeah.
And then, there are safety aspects and all those actually. So you have certain thresholds. So do you see, like when you plug in with the 60 kilowatt CCS2 charger,
Hmm.
your car was able to actually accept power at 60 kilowatt, or was it much lower?
No, so that's a great question. And what you talk about C rating is the maximum capacity that a car can charge um, in an hour. So if I remember correct, yeah. So my MG ZS EV, it's a 50 kilowatt hour battery pack. It charges at 1.4 C, which means that it can take charge up to 70 kilowatt. It does not mean that from 0 to 100 it will keep charging at 70 kilowatt. There will be certain sections, or there'll be a certain range. Like, if I remember correctly, for MG it's from 10% to like 60%, where it can charge at 70 kilowatt. But as it goes above 80, 90 kilowatt, 80, 90%, the charging speed will throttle. So yes, high power chargers are important, because then the 10 to 70% gets covered drastically, like gets covered quickly, as compared to a 30 kilowatt charger, which can take at least an hour to go from 10 to 70, at least on my car. So different cars have different C rates, and that is again available online. So
It's
customers
like it's
before
a
buying,
it's a public information. Like what is the
um,
C rate of the batteries of this? electric vehicle models?
So what I can say is that there is this CPO called Xeon Charging, and
Okay.
on Twitter they post charging curve of each graph.
Mm-hmm.
So charging curve of each car. So you can see that how fast a particular car would charge from 0 to 10%, 10 to 50, whatever, you know. So that is something that I often refer to understand if what the charging curve of a new car is. And OEMs don't put out such data, unfortunately, for now. So um, yeah, coming back to the December trip, while I was here, the idea was that, to explore different CPOs and to understand what is happening. Um, on the right side, I discovered a CPO called Start EV Charge. They have four chargers in two sides, two on one side of the highway, two on the other side of the highway. And this is somewhere in Rajasthan. The bottom right is that photo. And what I could see is that this particular charging point had a person to help. This is the first time in so many charging sessions that I saw that there was a physical, like there was someone actually to connect my car to the gun, like the experience at a fuel pump, right? And we call this as a manned station. And it was interesting because, I mean, even for an experienced user like me, um, I just felt great. Okay, wow, there is someone to help me. I don't have to pick up the bulky gun, connect it to the car, and get the whole process started. But putting up a manned person at these charging stations is not profitable, really, unless there is some other reason why that person is there. Because on most of the charging stations, you can just plug in your car and the car will start charging automatically. CPOs and OEMs have worked towards this feature where you plug in your car, you don't have to do anything. If your account has money, it will start charging, right? So the person that was there was also responsible for the solar plants that were installed at that particular charger. So this company had is into solar plants, and they typically install these solar plants on roadside dhabas and such entities where they'll generate electricity and they'll submit it to the grid. They must have seen that there is some extra energy that is being generated, so they put up a charger. And so that's the person's main job was with the solar panel and not to really help, but it worked for me. So these are some of the insights that I had from the December trip. Coming to 2023 and 2024, right? 2023 was almost exactly a year ago, where I went through Madhya Pradesh, Bombay, Dhule, Indore, Dosa, Kota, Dosa, Delhi, you know. And while I was doing that September trip, I realized by October you could also do the Indore, Gwalior, Agra route if you wanted to skip Rajasthan altogether. One key thing that is missing here is the Delhi Mumbai Expressway. What I've started, what I've also done is that from Bombay, I've gone to Dhule. From Dhule, I've gone to Ratlam, which is here. Ratlam to Kota, Kota, Dosa, Dosa, Delhi. You know, previously the trips that would take one, two, three, four charging stops. Now, because of the chargers coming on DME or coming closer to DME, I can do this trip in three stops. So if I start from Bombay, I covered Dhule in one go. From there, I go to Ratlam. I charge my car. From Ratlam, I go to Ranthambore, which is slightly above Kota. And from Ranthambore, I go directly to Delhi. So these points are very close to the highway, at least the Ratlam and the Ranthambore one. But the highway is not till Maharashtra yet, so I can't use it. But that's how I found an ideal way to travel between Bombay to Delhi. So previously, like the trips which would take like 4 or 5 charging stops, now has reduced to three, because
Wow.
one, you have high power chargers, and you
Uh,
also have chargers which are very close to the highway,
right.
right?
So what I infer from these, you know, from your road trips actually. on the different routes at the different times is one is definitely the power rating of the chargers. That is important. So especially I think where you are taking top up charging,
Hmm.
fast chargers have an important role to play, whereas slow chargers have a bigger role during the overnight charging actually, where you don't have the time constraint. The other thing is definitely your ambient condition plays an important part because it will kind of impact your electricity consumption or charge consumption of your battery. And from this slide, what I see that siting of the charging stations is also important because if you site your charging stations at the key locations, say as you mentioned on the expressways or highways, that will actually make it more user friendly or commute friendly actually, and it would be more faster for
Yeah.
for travelers. So these are really very good insights actually. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. Elevation is one thing that we have missed so far in our discussion. Not only the ambient temperature, but also elevation is something that matters a lot. If you're going up uh, in an electric car, your battery capacity will drop faster. If you're going down a hill, you will gain charge in your car and you can go a lot further, right? This is not possible in any other type of cars.
Mm.
So what happens here in the first chart? What happens in the first chart is the Delhi, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana, Delhi route. Sorry, Bombay, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana route. And in the second chart, what I'm doing is I'm taking the Dhule route. Like I travel a bulk of the distance in Maharashtra, then I go to Madhya Pradesh, and then I go to Rajasthan and Delhi. What is important is that this elevation that happens, like I could choose, like previously I was going across this elevation from Vadodara somewhere here to Udaipur, which is on a higher point. And if you don't have charging infrastructure in between, it becomes slightly tedious for a customer, for someone to take that route. We all know that, as we discussed earlier, that Maharashtra has much better charging infrastructure as compared to, say, Gujarat or Rajasthan, even, or Madhya Pradesh. So it was easier for me to do this climb in Maharashtra versus doing that climb ahead in Gujarat or Rajasthan. So what happens is that I consume bulk of my energy in the beginning. I have reliable chargers, so I can charge more in Maharashtra. And then when I'm going in the other states, I can keep going downhill instead of planning. Okay, I have to plan for an uphill or something like that. So this is a small point which, like the change in strategy, really helped me um, in figuring out the Bombay Delhi route. How is the charging today, right? Or how is the state today? I've put up a bunch of numbers on the screen right now. Let's start with the right map, right? Here you see the number of chargers that are present. It is both CCS2 type 2. And you see that, this stretch is literally full of charging points today, which is a great thing. That means that any car with more or less any range should be able to travel on this route. Whereas the other route that I'm talking about, that starts from Dhule, here, like if you go from here to here, and here is your Delhi Mumbai Expressway, which is not electrified that much. So it's still very difficult to take EVs on Delhi Mumbai Expressway, but you can definitely do the old highway in almost any electric vehicle. Sorry, just one sec. Yeah. So
Is
that,
this
yeah,
it's, I mean, sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
Do you think there are limited number of public chargers on the Delhi Mumbai Expressway because people take limited number of halls, like less number of halls, and also one can actually clock, you know, higher driving range actually. So you don't need that many top up charging.
Uh, Untrue. One, the charging infrastructure is still developing. The highway is still not complete.
Okay.
So that ensure, like, I mean, charging stations should come up on the expressway, and ideally on every rest stop you should have one charger. On DME there are rest stops every 50 odd kilometers. So if you have a charger on every 50 kilometer, you will ensure that there is no crowding at a charger, like people are not waiting to charge their car. And yeah, it is just good to have chargers, because then like cars with shorter range can also go on these routes instead of just cars which have a bigger range. All the data here is about Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan only. So here you can see that the top two cities or top two districts that are present are Surat and Ahmedabad, which have high number of fast chargers and slow chargers as compared to other cities or other districts in that list. We're talking about close to 1,000 chargers with at 711 distinct locations, with 1,300 charging points. This is both fast chargers and slow chargers. One more interesting trend that I saw was that in cities, you have high power charger, not a high power, but you have more capacity per charger in Gujarat as compared to the same charger in a town in Gujarat, as compared to other states where, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, they clearly have a lot more fast charger capacity on in these states as compared to the cities in these states. So this is just to understand as to how where the charge point operators are actually spreading their chargers, and what are they targeting, where are high power chargers being installed as compared to low power. So this is just some data around it. In these
I mean, are you able to kind of you know, guess some reasons why they are doing that? What is the rationale actually? What kind of, you know, principle they follow?
One rationale is that in cities you can also have more type 2 charging points, which will pull the average down. You can see the data without cities also, but that's separate. But
Mm.
without type 2 also, then then there might be slight change in the numbers. And these days, whenever you have a city, it is no longer on a highway. On a highway, you will always have small villages or towns. So, and charging infrastructure on highways is something that is more prominent, right? Cities, most people who are traveling in a city, they will not want, ideally they never have to use a fast charger. They can always charge at home or their workplace or whatever. So those are some of the reasons. But yeah, I just wanted to show the delta that on an average you'll get 10 kilowatt more charging capacity chargers in towns uh, as compared to cities in Madhya Pradesh. One interesting metric that is there in that, in these three states, on an average, 1 in 5 chargers are not working. So when an EV customer is planning their trip, they also have to keep that in mind, that is this charger going to work or not? When you show up at a charger, there can be various reasons why a charger is not working. There is no power supply, the charger is malfunctioning, the gun is broken or whatever. So before someone plans a trip, they need to ensure that, okay, a charger is online, it is available, and I can go and charge my car. People have already charged here. So that gives someone a confidence that, okay, this is a reliable charger. I've also put out individual state-wise chargers that are there. Like Gujarat has more than almost 5 times the number of chargers as in Madhya Pradesh. Um, and again, in Madhya Pradesh, like 1 in 4 chargers almost is not working. So it presents a lot of grid challenges also. It presents a lot of challenges on ground that the industry and the ecosystem has to figure out how to, and the policymakers have to figure out how to solve for this to enable e-mobility. Uh, this is some more data. Uh, you know, how each charge point operator is present in each zone, west and south, central. Central
Hmm.
meaning Madhya Pradesh and west meaning Gujarat and Rajasthan. So you see that of the 15, 16 CPOs that are mentioned here, like not a lot of them have a significant amount of presence in Madhya Pradesh too, right? So this also indicates like where the CPOs want to expand, how they are expanding. So yeah, this is some data that in fact this is the first time I'm showing this data. It is you can find a lot more data about this in an upcoming report that is going to be released next week on Monday or Tuesday. So yeah, I'm happy to take questions, and I can't see the previous questions that have been raised, so we can take them now.
Okay, yeah. So let me just read some questions which we have received.
Sure.
Um, yeah. So okay. I mean, before I think more questions are getting typed now since you
Sure.
have just paused actually. Let me pose my set of questions, and if you find merit in answering them. So I'm just starting from a very fundamental, aspect. What actually kind of drove you to opt for buying an electric car? Like, what was your motivation actually to buy an electric car? Because you mentioned your parents also has Tata Tiago electric, and you have MG ZSEV. What was the motivation? And is this your first personal car? Do you have another car, which generally we have seen many users have two cars, one electric for intracity commute or daily commute, and one conventional car for longer trips. But I can now clearly see that you are also using your electric car for the longer trips.
Yeah. So thank you. I will share how we got into electric cars. So I was never a road trip person. I would, in fact, like prior to doing EV road trips, I've just done one road trip, Delhi to Jaisalmer. That's about it. And my family has had. It's a small nuclear family. We have four people. So my family has had a Wagoner for 7 years. For they had one Wagoner for 10 years. We got rid of that Wagoner. We got another Wagoner for 7 years. So prior to getting an EV, that was all my family's experience, and like it was just in the city in Bombay, moving around and daily commute. Like the second Wagoner that we sold, that was around for like 7 or 7 odd years. In 7 years, it had done 50,000 kilometers. And here in 2 years, in my EV, I've done 50,000 plus kilometers. So there is just a contrast. Um, we we had a family meeting and we decided that I convinced my parents that electric vehicles is the way to go. Back then, you had Tata Nexon as a choice. Um, Tata Tigor as a choice, the MG ZS EV, and BYD E6. So it was, and Hyundai Kona, right? So there were these five options that we had, and we test drove almost all of them except the Kona. And my parents and I, we really liked the feeling and the luxury of MG as compared to the other cars. So it was a good upgrade for us from the Wagon. So that's why we bought the ZSEV. And once the ZSEV was here, we also kept the Wagoner for a bit because I had to get my parents like ensure that they were confident enough with um with an EV with in the house. So
Mhm.
my parents got the car. We got the car, and I would take it everywhere. And then when I was not taking it, my parents would take it, and then we would often fight as to who's going to take the ZSEV out and who's like the one who's left takes the Wagon. So within 6 months or so, we decided that okay, it's time we sold off the Wagon and we got the Tata Tiago EV. So that's how, like, my parents love the driving experience. I love the driving experience. And now that I'm in Delhi, the ZSEV is with me, and my parents have the Tiago. So
Totally moved away from petroleum fuel to electrons, actually, if I say.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I mean that's encouraging because often people keep a backup actually in the form of a conventional vehicle. But you have shown confidence, or you have reposed confidence on the electric platform actually. Uh, in line with a question from my colleague,
hmm,
uh, so I would like to understand your experience with after sales service because often we decide to buy a vehicle from a particular OEM based
correct.
on their after sales service, right? And it could be quite tricky for electric vehicle because it is a new technology. Even
Yeah.
sometimes automakers may not know how to troubleshoot the issues, forget about the EV users. So, how did you actually take this account?
So, very timely question. Just yesterday, I wrote about service network and service systems in EVs in India.
Mm,
Honestly, and this is the article link that I've posted. What happens is that service is one of the disappointments for almost all EV customers. Um, there's a lot of problems here because the dealerships and the service center are not trained enough to handle EV customers, to handle the queries.
mm,
And they also, the technology is so new. And if the OEMs are not building the technology in-house, then what
mm,
happens is that they have to rely on other OEMs, or they have to rely on other manufacturers. And that, because the chain of like the chain of communication becomes so huge that you know errors propagate in the car.
correct.
And because of which dealerships, I mean, service centers, they're like, okay, we don't know what is happening. We just will follow what the OEM says. And because, yeah, I mean, it is not possible for the service centers to come up with understanding of the car that quickly, because for ICE cars they've had like 30, 40 years of knowledge. There is institutional knowledge about ICE, but there is not much institutional knowledge about EVs. So that becomes a challenge. So that's why I believe that service centers are ripe for disruption, in the sense that people with different kind of thinking, people with a different kind of approach can get into this market and serve the EV customers. One more point I would like to add on this is that the ICE service centers, they're used to ICE service costs, which are huge. EV service costs are not not at all that high. It costs me barely 10 paisa per kilometer as a service cost. Um, in an ICE car, I'm assuming it would be close to 1 rupee per kilometer. And there are very few moving parts in an EV. So there's barely anything to service. In, like, for cars like Tesla, you have service on demand. Like, if something breaks, you come, you get the car serviced, and then you go. There's no fixed service schedule. The service centers in India, they're used to that regular churn of vehicles coming in, them earning through them the vehicles, and so that is an expectation mismatch in the industry, which I believe can be fixed.
Mhm. I think that this is an important point, and good that you conquer with the common notion that electric vehicles have lower maintenance cost
Yeah.
than their conventional counterpart. Actually, so my next question is, I mean, since you so much and you have shared so much details about your charging infrastructure experience, uh, in your regular commute travel, what is the role of public charging? And like if you can give some kind of a percentage, like okay, this percentage of your total charging demand you meet through public charging, otherwise you rely on your private charging.
So in the 60,000 kilometers, this includes all the road trips. This includes uh,
Uh-huh.
city driving, everything. I would say close to 50-50. But
Uh-huh.
that also has like 20-30 road trips, you know.
Okay.
If I am just home, then one in 100 chance I would go to a fast charger.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if I am, for example, if I'm going to a mall to watch a movie, there's a charger there. I would rather connect my charger to a slow charger because I am not in any rush to fully charge my car. It is just like it's known as opportunity charging, that I have an opportunity. I could use some top up, and then I don't have to then again put my car on charge at home or something like that. Typically in Delhi, I charge my car like once in 10 days or so, where if I'm not traveling outside. And that is more than enough. Like one night you put in your car and then, next day you have your car charged.
Uh, at your place, do you charge every night, or you see that okay, there is enough
Once in 10
residual
days.
charge?
Once in
One
10
in 10
once in
days.
10 days. Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Like
okay.
I don't have much commute in Delhi. Uh,
Hmm.
so that is one reason.
Hmm.
Secondly, charging infrastructure should exist in the cities because, for example, like when I visit cities like, for example, Udaipur or Jaipur, I would want to slow charge my car overnight. I don't live in that city. Uh, but there is a reason why slow chargers should exist. I'm not saying that charging infrastructure should disappear, but there has to be at least some slow chargers in cities so that people who don't have access to parking, people who don't have access to setting up their own chargers, can go and charge there uh, when they're in no rush. You know,
Right,
so that
right.
is something that I believe should happen.
Right. And I think you have highlighted an important issue actually, because often we hear from EV users that even installing a private charging point at your home. So home means it could be a multi-dwelling unit actually, not necessarily you have kind of a bungalow with your own backyard. It's very difficult to do that. To get kind of consent from the group housing society, from residential complexes. So how did you manage to get that actually?
So in Bombay, it was easy.
Uh,
We've been living in that society for over 40 years. So it was very easy to do that. In Delhi, I stay in an rented apartment, right? Here, I don't have my 7.2 kilowatt fast charger, AC fast charger. It's
right, right.
basically a single phase. Yeah, it's basically a 7.2 kilowatt charger. You plug in your car at night, and by morning, your car is fully charged. So here, what I do is I charge my car again using a 15 ampere
Uh-huh.
socket, but that socket is in the parking. So that is easier for me to do that. If there was a 7.2 kilowatt charger nearby, I would use it often if, like I wanted to put my car overnight on charge and then leave next day morning or something like that. Here it takes me one full day to charge my car. So that is how I have dealt with this so far. People do have some problems, but there are some guidelines, at least in Bombay, where society cannot deny installation of a charging point, provided certain guidelines are being met. So there is some action that is
I think
happening, and I believe
this
that
is
is,
very important actually,
yeah,
because this is, I mean, you're right, like ultimately the city authority has to take action because it comes
correct,
under the ULB, urban local body. And
correct,
this is where I think you see different kinds of experiences from different users, like as you
yeah,
said, in Delhi
mm,
it could be more difficult than in
mm,
Mumbai,
correct,
or compared to other cities. uh,
correct,
during your presentation, you mentioned that I think you kind of used, a hell lot of apps for charging, right?
yeah.
I don't exactly remember the number. How did you manage to navigate so many apps? And do you think this is really efficient? Because we are talking about e-roaming, where you can use any charging network of any CPO without having
Yes.
having their apps installed or wallets installed. So what is your experience and your advice here?
So, when you're looking at a charger, there are two to three things. One is where the charger is located.
Mhm.
Two, what is the live status of that charger right now?
Mm.
Is it working, not working? Three, how many people have used that charger? So for one and three, you have something called as plug share.
Mhm.
And Plugshare is this global network. It's community run network where people add charging points, their charging points, or whatever charging points they see, which is on the route or whatever. They'll add it on Plugshare, and people can start rating their chargers. People can show, okay, if they've had a good session or a bad session, or what is the charging speed, etc. Right. So that is where you will discover a lot of charging points in India. And as far as the status is concerned, so for that, um, for now, like you till now, you would have to use individual apps like the 90 odd apps that I have. Obviously, like a regular user will not want the 90 apps. If you're
Okay.
doing a particular route, you will only
Mm.
want the chargers that are there on that route. I like data, so that's why I have 90 apps. But
Mhm.
so you will download that particular CPO's app. You will see whether that charger is online, offline. You will see it for a few days before your trip so that you get an idea. Okay, this is the charger that is on most of the times or off most of the times, right? And then you also look at the reviews, which are there on PlugShare. So this is a combination of these three things where you understand where are the chargers and how to charge their car. Recently, MG has come up with this platform called eHub. Tata has come up with their platform called ira.ev, where you have charging points that are aggregated. You can also check the live status of the charger, and you can also charge your car for some of the charging points through that. So the OEMs are doing this, and yeah, I mean, we have to see how it picks up among the customers and what do customers really think. Like it's a very fairly recent development. It has happened maybe last month. Yeah, and I
Okay.
have, yeah,
So we have about 15 minutes left, and I would like to actually cover many other things. I mean,
sure.
so you lead to an important question, which is reliability of these public charging units, because
Yeah,
as you mentioned that you keep on tracking whether the chargers are on or not, at least on the app. So
correct.
do you always find that okay, on the app it is showing alive, functional, but when you go there, you find that okay, it's not working. And I have got this feedback from many of the cab drivers actually, because I keep on having chat. So my broader question is, what are the main pain points you have experienced actually
Hmm.
while driving your electric car and charging actually?
Correct. So it does happen that your charging point is not working when you reach a particular charger. Uh, in that case, all you can do is have backups. That okay, if this point is not working, I'll rather go to another point which is within my drivable range and figure out a charging point. If you don't have any such available charging points, then you request a dhaba wala to give you charging for 15 ampere, and you sit, you wait there, you contemplate life, and you charge your car.
And do you
So
first the Khabawala for the electricity, or is he giving you this free electricity because you are ordering five parathas actually?
no, it really depends. Like I've gotten free charge, I've gotten, like, hotels have given me free charging. Some hotels would like to charge. So it really depends on the person and the property,
They
but it is
look at you
possible
as
to
the
do.
ambassador, EV ambassador, and they want to brand them along with you actually.
So, yeah, I mean, with that also, like, there are a couple of questions in the chat that I would like to take
Sure.
about battery changing.
Hmm.
This is a myth in the EV industry, or like in the general population, that after 8 years or after warranty you need to change the battery of your car. In an ideal scenario, what happens is that today my car is giving 400 kilometers on a full charge. You know, batteries degrade. They are, at the end of the day, in electrical product, they will degrade. Like how your phone batteries degrade, right? You don't throw away your phone after 3 years just because the battery is down. The battery can be fixed or battery can be replaced. What the crucial difference between a phone battery and a car battery is that a car battery, to put it in a very simplistic sense, a car battery is made of various smaller cells or smaller cells, right? These cells can be arranged in a pattern, and you have a combination of these patterns that make a battery pack. If a particular cell has degraded beyond its limit, it is always possible to remove that assembly, put another assembly of cells, and that battery pack can go back to its best possible efficiency. In the coming days or soon, you will also be able to replace that particular defective cell in the car, and you install a new cell, and your battery pack, then again the efficiency in the battery pack again goes up. So that is one aspect of, if you really have to replace the battery pack, or if you have to replace the cells in the car, that is what will happen. So you don't have to quote unquote buy a new battery pack, right? Another thing that is there is that, okay, my car has degraded. Let's say in 1.5 lakh kilometers, my car degrades by 20%. So now on a full charge, I am going to get around 320 kilometers in my ZS EV instead of the 400. It doesn't mean that I'm getting 0 kilometers out of it. I'm getting 320 kilometers. It means that I can still plan my trips accordingly. If I don't want to go into that hassle of, you know, getting the battery pack replaced, or, getting it refurbished, or getting the cells changed or whatever, I can still drive my car. My car is still usable, and I still have a decent range to travel, So it is important for customers to understand that battery packs need not be replaced after every 8 years or so.
But related to this,
Hmm.
do you think that lack of secondary market for electric vehicles is currently a major problem, and it is discouraging many vehicle users to shift to EV?
I will answer that. So I am not a person from the auto industry, so I don't know how second-hand sales usually work.
Mm.
But what I can say for sure is that the models that are there in the market that are being sold, they are models from 2020, 2021, maybe. And what is happening in the EV space right now is that you have a lot more cars coming up, a lot more models coming up with much more advanced features as compared to the earlier models that people have had. That means that um, there is automatically less demand for the older cars. The, the easiest demand to fulfill is that these older cars can be used as taxis in cities.
Mhm.
Um, they have a predicted amount of range. They will have a predictive route pattern, and they can charge every night and keep being used as taxis. So that is a definite use case. But outside of that, customers, if someone is looking to upgrade, they would ideally want to go buy a new car just because of the new features or new breakthroughs that are happening in an EV. While I say that, I plan to keep my car for as long as I can, for easily up to 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh kilometers, at least my ZS EV.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't see a need to sell the car right now. So, yeah,
Well, definitely. I mean, and it's not that an old car actually that you just
yeah,
discard or abandon. In your presentation and in your lot of articles, you have highlighted the reliability issue.
correct.
Do you see that currently the CPOs are really responsive to the customer feedback or customer complaints, and
Mm.
they troubleshoot those problems in a very quick time. Actually, what has been your experience?
So they have to do that. Like if a CPO is not fixing their chargers, then it's a problem because their brand name gets spoiled. People, if for example, if I have had a poor experience at a particular charging point, I will never want to go that again because I would have found something that is definitely more reliable than the earlier one. You know, if you go to a charging point, like you will have your favorite spots because you know that okay, the food here is all right, the restrooms here are clean, it works for me. It there is some kind of predictability that is involved. So
Right.
it is in the best interest of a charging point operator to keep their points working because otherwise they'll start losing market share very quickly.
Right. And related to this, actually, we often hear that theft, vandalism, these are actually, damaging many of the charging assets, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
many media, many, social posts have highlighted this. Uh, According to you, how this can be actually avoided? Because ultimately you are losing precious assets, actually, because of theft and vandalism. And these
Yeah.
are kind of uncrewed, right? As you mentioned that, I think in all your experiences, you have just found one charging station which had a crew, and also the person was deployed for another purpose, but he was there at the site. So how do you actually then address this issue actually?
So there has to be more education around it. If a charger is being used regularly, um, like the thieves will not get a chance to go and cut the gun or damage the hardware.
Mhm.
That is one way. Second, if it is installed in public places where you have some sort of vigilance 24/7, like for example, when you go to highway dhabas, most of them now have CCTVs, right?
Mm.
They will have a big parking space, they will have CCTVs, they'll have a hotel, they'll have a restaurant. So there, the social elements like who will want to damage this, they'll not go and do that in such places. So that is one way to bring about change, is what I believe. Outside of that, I mean, um, it is still valuable. So there's copper in the charging cables. So it's honestly it's not that big of a problem in India as compared to what you see in the US. Um,
Mhm.
so there is some I mean, we are better off right now. So and I hope we stay that way.
Right. I mean, so for the knowledge of the audience, this is not a typical problem in India, actually, as Priyans mentioned that in developed EV markets, also like in the US, vandalism, theft, and also reliability issues in general, like chargers are not found functional. I think this is also kind of rampant there as well, not just in our country. Now, related to this, crew on crew thing of the public charging stations.
Yeah.
Human safety is a major concern, particularly in public space, right? And as we know that charging session takes time. It's not like 5 minute fuel refilling, which we are used to actually generally. It takes at least 30-40 minutes, even 1 hour.
Yeah.
And the charging stations are uncrewed. Uh, do you think female EV users are currently comfortable in charging public charging stations? And is this an obstacle for them to switch to electric?
So mm, the charging stations are usually not in isolated places,
Mhm.
and there is usually something or the other always with a charging station. For example, if you're in a city, it might as well be in a mall. When you're going to a mall, you're parking your car in a basement.
Mm.
You can park your car and put it on charge in the basement itself, right? If it is on a highway, there's a rest stop that you're waiting at. So you would wait at the rest stop even if you wanted to take a food break. So I would say that in most of the places, you either have a hotel, you have a restaurant, or you have a mall, or you have a commercial building where you can sit and you can relax. You need not be present with your car at the charging station. So I believe that is something that even the CPOs are keeping in mind when they're expanding the network, because women are 50% of the population, and if they are not comfortable, definitely the whole exercise is going to fail, because 50% of the car owners will not be able to use the charging stations.
From what I understand, that co-locating these charging points at existing public facilities is important, like malls, dhabas, eateries, hotels, or marketplaces. Because then, on one hand, you can avoid vandalism, theft, and on the other hand, the safety of EV users is also kind of
Yeah,
ensured.
yeah.
We have actually very short time. I just quickly want to understand from you.
Sure.
EV users have a certain charging pattern. Like at this time of the day, they charge. You might be charging at home during the evening and night time, like others. Now, if tomorrow, time of day, electricity tariff is introduced, which means that you have a higher rate during the evening time, for example, and a lower rate during the daytime, during the solar hours. Do you think it would be possible to kind of change the charging behavior and align your charging pattern with this tariff regime? I know it's kind of a guess, but what's your take on that? Quick.
I I do that already.
Hmm.
So in Bombay, I remember on the electricity bill, there is always this time slot that says that, and it says how much is the unit more costly or cheaper.
Hmm.
So I remember that from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the time when I get around 70 rupees, 70 paisa discount on a per unit basis. So I ensure that most of my charging happens in that particular time frame. There are the peak amount of the peak timings are around 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. or something like that, like peak evening time and peak morning time. So I try and usually charge my car overnight. And when you are fast charging, then I mean, the priority that takes over is charging and then moving on to the next point.
Right, right.
So
So yeah. So my closing question, sorry, Priyans, I mean
yeah,
we are actually running out of time. My closing question to you is, what would be your words of advice to the folks? We may call them kind of early majority actually, who are interested in trying out electric vehicles but have apprehensions. What would be your one advice for them?
I would say that the first thing that you need to do is you need to go and drive one. If you are a regular car driver or not, you will love the experience of driving an electric car. It's noiseless, it's pollution free, and it's smooth. Like you will not even understand that the car is on or off, and how quickly and how fast it can pick up, right? So I would highly recommend everyone to try and do that before even deciding what model or everything, because that is something that is going to really make you understand why I should be going towards an electric car. As far as models is concerned, or OEMs are concerned, it all depends on what kind of range you want, what kind of battery capacity you want. Do you want to travel in city, outside city, or and also crucially, which is the closest service center that you have around you? You know, these are some of the key factors that will go in deciding a car purchase if I have to buy a car today.
Thank you, Priyans, for this candid and insightful remarks and sharing your side of the EV story. And really, it has been fascinating to hear you. But unfortunately, we have run out of time for today. And we know
There's
that
one.
India's EV journey cannot be covered in just one conversation. Definitely, we need more to talk about other aspects. To summarize, For an ordinary person, switching from conventional vehicles to new energy vehicles like EVs may not be straightforward and rather may face a bumpy road. On one hand, there is a need to further expand the public charging network across the country, and on the other hand, the condition and reliability of the deployed charging assets have to significantly improve. Thus, adding more chargers on the ground does not make sense unless EV users are able to utilize them when needed. Not to forget, the central government has doubled the budgetary allocation for charging infrastructure under the newly launched PME Drive scheme. It's in the national interest to make this support count. Hope we learn from today's mistakes to have a better tomorrow. Thanks again, Priyank, for your time. From all of us here, it's a goodbye for now. Please take care. Ciao.